The church doors opened, and before anyone could even catch their breath, the bride watched her fiancé step away from her, take her younger sister by the hand, and confess that he loved someone else. The stunned silence shattered into whispers, gasps, and tears as guests rose from their seats in disbelief. In the space of a single heartbeat, everything Rowan Mercer had spent years building collapsed in front of everyone she had ever loved. The white flowers that had symbolized hope suddenly felt like decorations for a funeral, and the woman who had walked toward a future filled with promise found herself standing completely alone. If stories of kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances mean something to you, we invite you to follow our community and continue sharing these unforgettable journeys with those who believe that even the deepest heartbreak can become the beginning of an extraordinary new life. Rowan stood motionless while people hurried around her, unsure whether to comfort her or avoid the painful scene altogether. Her younger sister, Celeste, cried as she clung to Rowan's former fiancé, Grant, insisting that love was impossible to ignore. Their parents looked as though they had aged years in only a few moments. Reporters had not come, yet the humiliation spread quickly enough through phones and social media that by afternoon nearly everyone in their town knew the story of the abandoned bride. Rowan felt no anger at first. She felt only emptiness, as though every dream had been quietly lifted out of her heart. She spent the following weeks hiding from the world. She resigned from volunteer committees, stopped attending neighborhood gatherings, and refused invitations from friends who desperately wanted to help. Every sunrise reminded her that another day had begun without the future she had imagined. The betrayal hurt, but her sister's involvement wounded her even more deeply. She replayed every family dinner, every birthday celebration, and every holiday gathering, wondering when the secret love between Grant and Celeste had truly begun. Months later, Rowan's grandmother, Evelyn Mercer, gently convinced her to accompany her to a local rehabilitation center where volunteers delivered books and organized afternoon activities for recovering patients. Rowan agreed only because she could no longer bear spending every day trapped inside her own thoughts. She believed she was simply doing a small act of kindness, unaware that her life was quietly approaching another turning point. Among the patients was a reserved man named Alistair Vaughan. He was confined to a wheelchair after a devastating automobile accident that had left him unable to walk without assistance. His left hand trembled slightly whenever he reached for anything, and a long scar crossed one side of his face. Many volunteers politely greeted him before moving on to more cheerful patients, assuming he preferred isolation. Rowan noticed something different. Whenever children entered the center, Alistair smiled with genuine warmth. Whenever elderly patients struggled with crossword puzzles, he patiently helped them complete every clue. Over several weeks, Rowan and Alistair gradually developed a quiet friendship. They never rushed conversations. They discussed favorite novels, old architecture, classical music, and the comfort found in simple routines. Neither asked painful questions about the other's past. Both carried invisible wounds they understood without explanation. Rowan eventually learned that Alistair had once been an engineer before the accident changed everything. His recovery had been painfully slow, and many acquaintances had disappeared from his life after his disability made social gatherings awkward. He accepted every setback with remarkable dignity, never speaking bitterly about what he had lost. One bright autumn afternoon, Evelyn smiled knowingly as she watched Rowan laughing for the first time in many months. She later admitted that healing rarely arrived through dramatic miracles. Sometimes it entered quietly through ordinary conversations with extraordinary people. As the seasons changed, Rowan and Alistair grew inseparable. They visited museums during sunny afternoons, enjoyed peaceful walks through botanical gardens where Rowan pushed his wheelchair along flower-lined paths, and volunteered together at community events. Rowan discovered that Alistair possessed a generosity unlike anyone she had ever known. He quietly paid for children's school supplies without revealing his identity. He funded physical therapy sessions for struggling veterans through anonymous donations. He treated every person, regardless of status, with equal respect. One afternoon, Rowan asked how someone living on disability benefits managed such surprising generosity. Alastair smiled gently and simply replied that some blessings were easier to share than explain. Their friendship slowly blossomed into love. It was not built on grand romantic gestures or dramatic promises. It grew through countless moments of patience, trust, honesty, and unwavering support. Rowan realized she had fallen in love with a man whose strength came not from physical ability but from remarkable character. When Alastair unexpectedly proposed during a charity picnic beneath the shade of ancient oak trees, Rowan accepted with tears streaming down her face. Some friends questioned her decision. Others whispered that she deserved someone healthier or more successful. Rowan ignored every opinion because she had finally learned that appearances revealed very little about the true worth of a human heart. The wedding took place on a beautiful spring afternoon beneath clear blue skies. Unlike her first ceremony, there were no extravagant decorations or expensive displays. Friends from the rehabilitation center sat proudly in the front rows. Volunteers, nurses, therapists, elderly neighbors, and children surrounded the couple with genuine affection. Every smile felt authentic because everyone present had witnessed love grow slowly through compassion rather than convenience. Among the guests sat Grant and Celeste. Their own relationship had become strained almost immediately after betraying Rowan. The excitement that had once driven their impulsive romance had disappeared beneath guilt, mistrust, and endless arguments. They attended quietly after receiving an unexpected invitation from Rowan herself. Following the ceremony, several sleek black vehicles arrived outside the reception venue. Guests exchanged puzzled glances as elegantly dressed executives stepped out carrying folders and greeting Alastair with extraordinary respect. Within minutes, whispers spread throughout the crowd. Alastair Vaughan was not simply a former engineer. Years earlier, he had quietly inherited one of Europe's largest private investment groups from his grandfather. Rather than living publicly as one of the world's wealthiest businessmen, he had chosen anonymity, focusing on charitable foundations and community development projects. His accident had occurred shortly after assuming leadership of the company, prompting him to withdraw almost completely from public life. His estimated fortune reached well into the billions, yet almost nobody outside his closest legal advisors knew the truth. The executives had arrived because Alastair insisted that several charitable trusts be transferred into Rowan's name as equal partner immediately following their marriage. It was his wedding gift, not luxury, not power, but the opportunity to continue changing lives together. Grant's face turned pale. Celeste lowered her eyes, overwhelmed by shame. Yet Rowan showed neither triumph nor satisfaction. She simply looked at the man beside her with the same tenderness she had shown before learning anything about his wealth. To her, the revelation changed nothing because she had already fallen in love with the man long before discovering his fortune. The weeks that followed astonished everyone. Instead of purchasing enormous mansions or collecting expensive cars, Rowan and Alastair transformed abandoned buildings into rehabilitation centers, scholarship programs, family shelters, and affordable housing communities. Physical therapy became accessible for countless accident survivors. Single parents received educational grants. Elderly residents found safe places to spend their afternoons surrounded by companionship instead of loneliness. News organizations eventually uncovered the remarkable story of the billionaire who had quietly hidden behind a wheelchair while changing thousands of lives. Journalists expected dramatic interviews about wealth. Instead, they heard Alastair speak only about gratitude, resilience, and the people who had shown kindness before knowing who he truly was. One sunny afternoon nearly 2 years later, Rowan received a handwritten letter from Celeste. The letter contained no excuses. It acknowledged every painful mistake, every selfish decision, and every consequence that had followed. Celeste admitted she had spent years believing happiness could be stolen from someone else without cost. Instead, she had learned that betrayal always demanded a painful price. Rowan thought carefully before responding. She invited her sister to meet at the botanical garden where she and Alastair had spent so many peaceful afternoons. Their reunion was quiet and emotional. Tears flowed freely, but they were no longer tears of anger. Rowan explained that forgiveness did not erase the past, nor did it pretend betrayal had never happened. Forgiveness simply released the burden of carrying bitterness forever. Celeste embraced her older sister with genuine remorse, grateful for a second chance she never believed she deserved. Watching from nearby, Alastair smiled quietly. He understood that true wealth could never be measured by bank accounts alone. It lived inside hearts capable of choosing compassion when resentment seemed easier. Years passed, and Rowan often reflected upon the devastating afternoon when she had been abandoned at the altar. At the time, she believed her life had ended. Looking back, she realized it had actually begun. Had everything unfolded according to her original plans, she might never have met the man whose kindness transformed not only her future but the futures of countless strangers. Every morning they continued visiting hospitals, schools, rehabilitation centers, and neighborhoods that needed hope. Children laughed because scholarships opened doors once thought impossible. Families rebuilt their lives because someone believed in them during their hardest moments. Survivors learned to walk again because generous hearts refused to abandon them. Rowan eventually understood the greatest lesson of her journey. The people who wound us are not always the people who define us. Sometimes life's cruelest disappointments quietly redirect us toward blessings far greater than anything we once imagined. Character outlasts beauty. Compassion outshines status. Love rooted in respect survives every storm. Before this story comes to a close, take a moment to share your thoughts. What do you believe is more important in a lasting relationship: loyalty, forgiveness, honesty, or resilience? Your reflection may encourage someone else who is walking through a difficult season. As sunlight bathed the garden where their story had come full circle, Rowan watched children play among blooming flowers while Alastair laughed beside them, no longer defined by the wheelchair that had once caused others to overlook him. She realized that the happiest chapters of life often begin immediately after the pages we believed would destroy us. The woman who had once been abandoned before an entire congregation had become a symbol of grace, strength, and hope, proving that destiny sometimes closes one door only to open another beyond anything the human heart could have imagined. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to share your thoughts with our community and pass this story along to someone who may need a reminder that hope can rise from heartbreak, forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds, and every ending has the power to become a beautiful new beginning.